time now, I have struggled with what it means to be a Christian. What I believe it means, what I have been taught in my Catholic faith, seems to be up for debate these days. And I wonder, how can this be? And while faith is often personal, aren't we called to live out our faith by how we are in the world, how we engage with one another and in our community? Not just checking off the boxes, outwardly performing religious practices like going to church on Sunday and fasting on Fridays during Lent and saying our daily prayers and rosary, but more importantly, living out of our values and precepts of our Christian faith, a faith that does justice. It is certainly a core element of the Jesuit mission that is experienced in Ignatian spirituality, and that is that one's faith should lead to actions that promote justice and serve the needs of others, especially the marginalized. Our following Jesus, not only what he said, but how he treated and cared for others, seems pretty clear. So when I read today's passage from Isaiah, it struck me somehow ironic on two levels. The first, this being an ancient text from the Old Testament, made me wonder just how much clearer could it be for anyone hearing these words back in ancient Israel and today? What is pleasing to God? What does God ask of us? Loose the bonds of injustice. Let the oppressed go free. Share your bread with the hungry. Bring the homeless poor into your house. Cover the naked. The second thought was, it seems we have unfortunately not learned much over the centuries, for like the Israelites, we have fallen into the same hypocrisy that the Israelites did, acting like a righteous nation that has not forsaken God, when in fact we have forsaken God. For they had the prophet Isaiah and other prophets calling them to seek God and mend their ways. We had God incarnate in Jesus calling us to the same. We hear Jesus pretty much echoing Isaiah in Matthew 25. I'm sure you recall, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, and take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me. And I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you visited me." And of course, as the story goes in the gospel, when did we do this for you? They asked Jesus. And he says, when you did it to the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it for me. You did it for God. It appears that somehow we've gotten lulled into thinking that this is a call to justice for just the individual alone. And we have abandoned the idea that it is a community bound as well. The call from Isaiah is to the Israelites collectively. Together, they needed to change their ways. The Israelites' entire way of life was not marked by justice and mercy, but instead it was stained by their own violence and evil, and no amount of fasting and ritual could cover that stain. Trying to make themselves righteous through hypocritical piety, Isaiah was pointing out, was not going to work. What God desires is worship that shows itself living out justice, mercy, and caring for the poor and oppressed, not just outward religious observance. And the passage goes on to describe how wonderful their lives would be if they lived out of these precepts. When we actively seek to meet the needs of others, we will be living in right relationship with God. This is what God wants from us: relationship, right relationship with our brothers and sisters. And that brings us into right relationship with God, does it not? The core of Matthew 25. In many ways, Jesuit Pedro Arrupe, General Superior of the Jesuits from 1965 to 1983, was like Isaiah, a voice pointing out the slippery slope of not focusing enough on the formation of men and women for others in the schools Jesuits ran. He wanted the emphasis to be stronger, primary, one elite school and elite education, if they are not careful, can place the emphasis on personal gain. In the excerpt we have from Pedro Arrupe, he makes it clear that for Jesuit schools, the prime objective should be to help form men and women who cannot even conceive of love of God, which does not include love for the least of their neighbors. Men and women completely convinced that love of God, which does not issue injustice for others, is a farce. Strong words, but oh so prophetic. The fasting we are called to do is to set aside personal gain alone and recognize that when we are all for one another, we are for God and everyone is elevated. Ideally, students should leave their institutions understanding that to whom much is given, much is expected, and God needs their help to realize God's dream for the world. And so here I am, where I started. What does it mean to be Christian today? It is a question I believe we Christians in our country need to be asking ourselves every day. We can make a difference. Our fasting can bring about justice by opening our wallets and being willing to sacrifice time, talent, and treasure for those who need us. Through our resources to help them where we can, and our voices and time to act as advocates to help change the systems that are keeping them from living a full life. And then and only then will we be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. And oh, the places we'll go when we do live this out. How beautiful the world will be. The Christian today, called to live out the faith, share the good news to all the world, follow in Jesus' footsteps, and bring justice into the world. Let's make it happen.